Hi, I wanted to do a demo today to show you a few beginning watercolor techniques because they're not hard to master, so I don't want you to be afraid. And I thought if you could watch my brush step by step, you would get the hang of it and then you could practice it at home. So Pace, we're going to do your portrait. So what would you like? Would you like to look thinner? Would you like to look taller? Would you like to look your nose to be shorter? I think you're perfect the way you are though. I'm just going to make some notes on this little pad of paper about where your colors go, and then we will show how to paint you, okay? Using a flat wash, which is the best, easiest. Pace, what color are your eyes? Oh, they're gorgeous. Okay, so I wanted to show you, first of all, the basic wash. So this is what you do. You take the color you want. So I made some notes when Pace stopped by that the different colors to use in the different areas. So what you could do is, you've got your water, you've got your artist tissue, you've already sprayed your paints to wake them up, and you've got another cloth to dab on should you need to. So if this area of Pace, and if you want to practice this at home, you could try dividing the different areas so that you have different areas to practice. So we're going to say that this area of Pace right here is going to be burnt sienna, because that's what he was. And we're going to use just regular burnt sienna. You're going to mix it up on your palette. It's not going to be too sticky. It's going to have enough water in it, so it's about like that, kind of like maybe non-fat milk, maybe milk. Then here's the top secret. You need to get something that you can put your painting board on so that it tilts. With a wash, gravity is very important. So you want to tilt like this. Then you have your filled paintbrush. It's almost dripping with paint. And you start. And you just go back and forth. You stroke and you push. If you can see here, this little blob of paint at the end of this is called a bead. You just put your brush, you attach it to the very edge, and you push that bead back again. Pace is commenting in the other room. Then you push that bead down here. Then you push it back over here. Then you bring it back. So I'm again just on the edge. Then I'm going to go back over here, back over here. When it starts to wash out, like there, the bead is almost leaving, I'm just going to load up with one tiny tipful of more paint and bring it back in and make a new bead. And I'm going to again go back and forth on the edges, bring it over here, go back and forth, bring it here, bring it under here, bring it here, bring it here. It's right here. And I know it's going to wash out down here, so I'm going to stop. Then if I still have, well, I don't actually have any of the bead. If I wanted to, if I had some left like that, what I might do is wipe off my brush so it's damp and just pick that up. Just gently just touch that so I kind of suck it up. So that is called a flat wash. Now, there's the second technique that you need to do. And maybe what I will do is show it to you in another color so that you get to see it again, just to make sure you get it. Because if you get this, you're home free. So let's look at my notes, and let's see. I decided that Pace's front legs were going to be, or back here, this was going to be burnt sienna. He had some burnt sienna. No, burnt umber, which is a darker brown, and it's pre-mixed. You could make it darker, could mix your own, or you could use it right out of the pan. This is burnt umber. So see, you can see it's much darker. And you need, again, a little water, maybe a little more paint. You want it to move. Then, again, you just start, and you just touch it down. There's the bead. You push it around. There it is. You kind of coax it, push it over here, pull it down, there, pull it back, pull it back, pull it back, pull it back, pull it over down here. Oh, there it is. Now look, I still have a bead, and if it was really, really drippy, it might even drip down, but now I've dampened my brush, and I'm just touching it to pick it up a little bit. Okay, so that's following the bead. You can always add more areas, but this is called a flat wash, where it's all one color, pretty much, all the same color strength. Now, there's another kind of wash called a gradated wash, which means it gets lighter as it goes down. So let's try that. Let's try a slightly lighter shade, burnt sienna with more water in it. We're going to use that for Pace's ear. So we're going to start here. See, it's lighter. We're going to pull it down. It's very light. Going to go over here, pull it here, pull it here. Now, we could refill this bead, but we're not going to refill it with paint. We might even put a little water on it. And then you're going to coax that same edge down, and it's going to get lighter and lighter. So I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of not the best example, but you can see it started to get lighter. So instead of loading up on your second wash of paint, you load up on water. Let me show you again over on the other side, and I'll make this paint a little darker. So here we start under his mouth, and we're pulling down the blob. When we get to about here, instead of adding more paint, just add water, and it'll get lighter. That's called a gradated wash. Okay, now Pace's area of his ears, on both ears, are wet. So that brings us to another basic technique, which is called wet into wet. And that's just basically you drop the paint into a wet area. So you're going to get texture. So maybe I'm going to leave. So this was pretty dry already. It's not really that wet. But you're going to get more texture than with a flat wash. And here it's wet. So it mixes with the color underneath, so you get more texture. But we'll leave that white. Oop, and I see a blob here, so I'm going to pick it up like that. As long as we're here, I'll show you another technique. This is called a lift. So you clean off your brush, then you dab it on, you wipe off the excess water so your brush is damp. And then if you wanted, say, it to be light here, you press down. There, it did it really well. You press down your brush and lift off some of the paint. You're actually lifting off, like let's lift off some here. There you go. So that's called a lift. So now you know a gradated wash, a flat wash, and a lift. And wet into wet. There's Pace saying, when's my portrait going to be done? Okay, I just want to show you one more thing since you're here today. What if you have a white area and the dog has a lot of white on him? So you don't want to leave it completely white. One strategy is to use a watery blue. In this case, this is cobalt blue. And it's got a lot of water in it, so I could just use the watery blue, or I could take a teeny bit of burnt sienna just to dull it down a little bit so it's kind of a gray blue. Then, this is Pace's back leg, so I want it to move back. So what I will do is put it here, and I'll just put a little of this blue right here. And maybe a teeny bit more, maybe even a little bit bluer for his toenails, maybe a little bit in contrast. And I might kind of take my damp brush and soften the edge by rubbing it parallel. So, but I'm leaving some white there so that it will read as white. And maybe his belly will be white later. So you could also, on the bottom of his belly, don't be afraid to turn your painting, and if we're going to have his belly be slightly white, you can do this. You can put some blue here like this, and then again take the the brush where there's no more water and just kind of scoop it up and then put more water on, and you can tilt it and that'll kind of, there you go. So you've got kind of just a little duller blue to provide some shadowing underneath. So I would say, if you want to try this at home, get whatever subject matter you want to do in a few colors and practice and divide up your subject matter into sections and practice following the blob, and then filling it using water instead of refilling your brush with paint, and practice wet into wet. And that should give you a good foundation, and we'll go from there. What I want to show you today is how I continued working on the portrait of the dog with watercolor, and I'm going to explain to you how I finished it off. So what I did was, here is where I did the initial flat wash. I waited until the flat wash was completely dry, and then I layered flat washes and brushed them on top. This is not the best quality paper. I didn't use one of my favorites. I just used a practice kind of paper. So your wash is not completely flat on poor quality paper, but you get the idea. And I also did layers of wash here, and layers of wash here, and layers of wash here. And then underneath the dog, I used a darker color of underneath the dog because he casts a shadow. And I put more yellow in the grass here because the sun is hitting it and he's not casting the shadow. And then you can see, if you look carefully, this area reads as white fur, but you do have the blue shading only in certain areas and crevices, and it's darker down here under the belly, which is the furthest away from the light, so that it appears white, but you've used blue or lavender for the shading. And then I finished up with a wash for the background, and couple spots on the nose. I left a white spot unpainted in the eye for a highlight, and that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions or want some advice on getting started with watercolor, feel free to put a note in the comments below, and I'll hope to answer your questions, because don't be afraid of getting started with watercolor. It's wonderful and you can do it. It's not rocket science.